info.
You're welcome once again to the show. It's the Morning Crossfire on 99.3 Nigeria Info. If you're just joining us, well, you're in time for the last lap of the show. And today is the International Day of the Girl Child. This forms a conversation for the next 1 hour. And we're streaming live on Facebook, also on YouTube at Nigeria Info FM. You can join us there with your comment. Also, you can reach us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM. We apologize I can't read your messages on WhatsApp today. Please bear with us, but we would be taking your comments from Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, all at Nigeria Info FM. Good to have you join us. I am Wemimo Adewuni.
And I am Sheriff Quadry. Today is International Day of the Girl Child. It's going to be an interesting conversation, trust me on that one. According to the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, about 25 years ago, some 30,000 women and men from nearly 200 countries arrive in Beijing, China for the Fourth World Conference on Women, determined to recognize the rights of women and girls as human rights. Now, this is because they wanted to tackle issues that affect the total growth and development of adolescent girls, like child marriage, like education, inequality, gender-based violence, climate change. Self-esteem is also in the mix, and girls' right to enter places of worship or public spaces during menstruation. These are discriminations and denials for girl child in the world over. In the quest to address peculiar issues that pertains to the girl child all over the world, the United Nations has dedicated the 11th of October every year as the International Day of the Girl Child. Hence, for this year, the theme of the International Day of the Girl Child is entitled Girl Force, Unscripted and Unstoppable. The main essence of this year's International Day of the Girl Child is to achieve the following. Let me just mention a few. To eliminate all forms of discrimination against girls, to eliminate negative cultural attitudes and practices against girls, to promote and protect the rights of girls and increase awareness of their needs and potential, to eliminate discrimination against girls in education, skills development and training, to eliminate discrimination against girls in health and nutrition. The aim is also to eliminate the economic exploitation of child labor and protect young girls at work, to eradicate violence against girls, to promote girls' awareness of and participation in social, economic and political life, and to strengthen the role of the family in improving the status of girls.
This is happening for the next 1 hour, and we have joining us in the studio Rotimi Sankore. Rotimi, thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
Rotimi is a journalist and data and policy expert. We also have Barrister Taiwo Kilami, who's a child's right advocate, joining us on the show. Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Our correspondent Good News Sindikwe went on the street and asked questions about the girl child, impressions that Nigerians have about girl child in the 21st century. Do you listen to this?
There's a large impact of the girls, like the building of a nation. I mean, we're the ones who will stay with the children, give birth to children. We're the ones who will impact, wisdom to the children. If we don't know, how do we teach? If we don't know, how do we grow future leaders? And then, what roles can a girl not do? There's really nothing that a girl cannot do. We're human beings. I've seen girls in engineering, I've seen girls in medicine, I've seen girls in everywhere. And I'm a girl here, and I am properly educated, and I know what my education has done for me in life. Growing up right now, I'm self-employed, and it was the knowledge I got from university that I'm using to run my business right now. I brand people's businesses. Being able to read about any field I want to read about, to brand it, to write about it, to create websites, is the education I got. So I sincerely don't see any reason why anybody should not be educated at all. There's no role that any girl cannot do.
In Nigeria, we believe ladies are meant to be in the kitchen. They are being restricted to some jobs. Do you understand? Even while growing up your children, in African or Nigerian way, you tell the lady to sweep, to cook, to wash the plates, while you tell the guys to maybe clean the TV. There is restriction. But to me, I think there shouldn't be restriction. They are all equal, both male and female. At least we have successful female like Obi Kwesile, Nkoje Iweala. Those are female that are doing good. If they were not sent to school, so they won't have become what they are today. I think the same education you have to give to your male child, you give to your female.
At the end of the day, if you look at it, girls actually do better in school than guys. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Why put a gender to education?
These days we've been seeing female doing well in different fields, even in mechanical, other fields. So I don't think there should be restriction.
I believe both boys and girls deserve the same kind of treatment. Being special gifts from God, you should learn to accept whatever you are given. I even think the girl child should be educated more than the boy. I think some of the greatest men in the world all have educated girls. Boys are specially built to do particular jobs, while girls can do specifically other jobs themselves, maybe lighter jobs, but expecting a woman to do a laborious job like carrying of heavy things is not acceptable. So in that case, there might be a divide. Having girls do laborious jobs like carrying heavy metals, carrying heavy loads, over time it might tell on their health, but men are physically built for particular roles, so to speak.
A girl child should be a bit pampered when it comes to working, in terms of being stressed. So the boy child should do more of the stress than girl child. I think so.
The job that is made for men, the woman can do it also.
Well, we have a smile on our faces here just listening to those perceptions about the girl child. About two of the last respondents said one said girls should be pampered when it comes to certain roles, and the boys should do the heavier, what we call the heavier job roles. And some saying choosing jobs also, girls might want to tend towards softer roles so it doesn't impact on their health by lifting heavy objects. Very interesting perspectives there. But let's come over to the studio and give you some statistics. Many girls are not enrolled in school, that's a fact, and the global figure for out-of-school children is estimated at 121 million. Of these numbers, 65 million are girls, that's over half, with over 80% of these girls living in sub-Saharan Africa, including Nigeria. 27.2% of school-aged girls in Nigeria are currently not enrolled. This is according to data from the Voice of Nigeria report done from there. Also, according to a multiple indicator cluster survey of 2016 and 2017, which was conducted by the National Bureau of Statistics in collaboration with UNICEF and other partners, shows that about 60% of children of school age are not in school. A UNICEF evaluation expert, Maureen Okolo, claimed that Northeast has 53.3% and retains the highest number of girls who are out of school of primary school age, while Southeast has 46.2% with the lowest number of girls out of school. Also, 51% of girls of primary school age are not enrolled in schools. These girls are based in rural areas. 52% are in urban areas. Wow, this is shocking. So in urban areas, you still find girls who don't go to school. 52.5% in urban areas, while 51% in rural areas. Pretty interesting. Borno State has 70.7% of girls who are not in school, and that's the highest number of girls of primary school age that are out of school, while Abia has 33% of girls of primary school age who are out of school. Barrister Tawa Kinami, this, you work with children. I'm really just surprised seeing these numbers, especially in urban areas, that girls are still out of school.
Well,
usually we focus on the rural areas,
Yes, when we look at these issues, it is important to understand that those statistics represent human beings. They represent destiny. They represent some people's present and the future. And it is so sad that in Africa, in the 21st century, the year 2019, when the world is planning to go to the mass and erect a livelihood there, we are still dealing with the issue of education, primary education. Now you have to look at that within the provisions of the Universal Basic Education Act that makes education compulsory for every Nigerian child for the first 9 years. And so when you deal with all of these things, it is saddening. So for me, it is not a day of I won't call it a day of celebration. I think for the lack of better word, is a day of sober reflection to call attention to the state of our girl children and begin to ask ourselves, what kind of conversation should we begin to have? Is it enough to have it in a day like this, or to have it the year round. So for me, it is very sobering, and it is something we need to pay more attention to and begin to ask the question: if the welfare and the security of the people is the primary aim of government, so if government does not take responsibility for what it should take responsibility for, what kind of advocacy, what kind of agitation do we embark on to ensure that the government does the needful?
What interests me also is that we talked about this last year, and here we are again this year, and the numbers are still staring us in the face. I mean, we still have a high number of children out of school. What should we be doing right now?
Well, I think that there are many issues involved. Now, when you look at the right of the child, you find out that education is under the development right. It's just one. Then you look at survival rights, the right of the child to healthcare, that is also endangered. Then you look at the right of the child to participation in matters that concern them. So when you look at all of this and the right of the child against protection, just yesterday the newspaper reported of a 40-year-old police officer who consistently raped a 9-year-old. So you find out that whichever way you look at it, the Nigerian child is endangered. And it is important that we locate all of this within one conversation, whether it is education, whether it is health, whether it is participation or protection. All of these are issues that the Nigerian girl faces. And I think the foundational issue is our belief system about children generally and about the girl child. So we have this faulty belief system that sex means superiority or inferiority. So if you are a man, you are superior. If you are a girl, you are inferior. That belief is still so strong, even amongst those who are supposed to be educated. Those who have the girl child feel that they don't have children yet. My brother-in-law lives in the US, and he tells me that he has 2 girls, and he tells me that people who live with him in the US say, you don't have children yet. You don't have children yet. Now, these are Nigerians living in the US. Are you getting it?
Right.
And this is their thinking. So we need to first address the belief system that promotes one sex over the other. And so I think that's where we need to begin from. Our belief about children, our belief about the girl child, I believe about the responsibility of the girl child vis-a-vis the responsibility of the boy child. Today, the girl child is endangered to the extent that I deal with women. As of today, I have close to 12 women on my table, 12 women's cases on my table whose husbands have run away from home. These were husbands that were told when they were growing up, if the boy child and the girl child were playing when they were, few years back, and I think it still happens now, and the mother or the father comes into the room, is going to tell the girl child, my friend, will you stand up and go to the kitchen? And as a girl is standing up to go, maybe complaining, the mother is going to respond by saying that, and you don't you know one day you'll be married, you'll be in your husband's house. So all of those narratives begin to tell the girl child that it's your responsibility to make marriage work, because the boy child never hears that one day you are going to be married. And so today women are seen taking responsibility in that space, boys are seen receding in those responsibilities, and it has created a lot of problems. So we now have a fatherless generation. We now have women playing the role of both men and women, which is quite sad.
Rotimi, yes, no doubt we have challenges of cultural beliefs, we have challenges of religious beliefs, but does that actually guarantee, should that mean that girls shouldn't be enrolled in school? Because these figures are quite scary. 52.5% of girls that are out of school are in urban areas. I mean, we're not even talking about rural areas now. In urban areas, why should we be talking about all of these things at this time and age?
There is a bigger picture we need to look at. And yes, indeed, today is a day for very sober reflection. The Nigerian state at federal, state government and local government levels has largely failed in the duty to protect girl children. And this is really important because the state at all levels has not come to the full realization and put the resources, both financial and otherwise, to uphold the rights of girls and women. girls and women are not commodities. I mean, that's the first thing that needs to be established. Girls and women are not commodities.
To be owned.
They are human beings with full human rights, just like men. Once that principle is established by states, then the issue of protection will kick in. I always raise the one issue that is the biggest obstacle that prevents girl children, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa and in many underdeveloped parts, from fulfilling their aspirations. This thing of forced child marriage, people don't understand the impact that it has on girls. So, if, for instance, a man grabs a 14-year-old girl off the street of Lagos on her way to school and locks her in his house and starts subjecting her to daily rape, the outrage will be there and it will be justified. In fact, family police, if the guy is caught, he will be lucky if he's not lynched by people. At least it has happened. But if the same man turns round and says, that he has circumstances in which that girl is now identified or labeled as his wife, it is then accepted that she is property. And most people will back off.
Most people will look away.
Now, if you look at the scale of it, the latest reliable data that I have seen and that I have worked on, in states like Jigawa State, this has happened to 87% of girls and women. In Bauchi is 84, Yobe 81, Katsina 79, Sokoto 79, Zamfara 79, and so forth. If you think it happens only in the northeast or northwest, you are mistaken.
Right.
Outside the northeast and northwest, it happens in Bayelsa. It's 50%, which means 1 in 2 girls are subjected to this. And what does it mean in terms of human rights? Forced child marriage is a form of domestic trafficking because you hand over a girl into a bondage and enslave. It's horrendous. They don't have right to freedom of assembly, association, expression, movement. They do unpaid labor. They are raped, violate their bodily integrity, and it goes on and on. On health grounds, it also means that girls suffer the discrimination at that level I just mentioned, that percentage, 87%, 84% of all girls. It means that girl children have the highest risk of pregnancy-related death and injury.
Right.
So it's also a matter of life and death. It's not play. It's a risk factor for cervical cancer. It's a risk factor for VVF. And if you have VVF, you are paralyzed. You can't move.
Of the top 20 countries in the world with the highest, let me give you these numbers, with the highest rate of child marriage across the globe. This is data from the Association of Reproductive and Family Health. Of the top 20 countries with the highest rate of child marriage across the world, 17 of those are African countries. Nigeria ranks at number 11 on that list.
But there is a twist to it. And I'm sure, Wemimo, you've been somewhere we have presented this data before. So that ranking is percentage-wise.
Yes.
When you convert that 43%, so what you are looking at is 43% of all girls and women.
Yeah.
Then Nigeria goes to the top.
Yeah. Because you look at the
because
number
in terms of absolute numbers.
Right.
And what that also means is that it translates into violation of rights and misery on that scale. Now we are looking at well over 20 million girls and women that have gone through this. How do you even start to resolve that? Because, look, mental health issues, if you are subjected to forced sex, rape, and violence from when you are 13, 14, 15, and you are forced to accept it as normal, the mental health issues will be horrendous.
Complications.
And there is no mechanism for redress on this. They can't go out and say, I'm shattered. the government cannot help them.
Marisakila, I mean, the last time you were here, we talked about these issues, including the constitution, getting the whole country confused about the age of a child. So we still haven't addressed that. Like
Which
I said,
is deliberate.
We had this conversation last year. We're here again at this point, and we still have these issues. So who really is a child? I mean, the constitution says in one part that when you're 18 or below, you're a child, but elsewhere says once you're married, you're regarded as an adult. So for a child,
once you are forced into something described as marriage,
it is described as marriage there, then you're regarded as an adult.
Let me quickly address that. I think that it is important that we understand that the only law that seems to not be clear about the age of consent for a child is the Violence Against Persons Act, which is, as of today, to the best of my knowledge, has not been ratified by any state. It's at the federal level. So now, when you look at the Child Rights Act 2003, a child is anybody below 18 years old. It is important that when we look at the law, we look at the subject matter. I think that the Constitution was addressing the issue of citizenship. It was on that citizenship issue that the issue of when a woman is married is considered to be of age, by virtue of that marriage, in relation to citizenship. I do not think why there must be agitation at that level, but I do not think that provides any justification for a girl child to be married out. And I've had a major problem with this concept, what we call marriage. Like Mr. Rotimi said, if you rape a child consistently, you are called a rapist. If you take the same child
and pay some money on her,
pay some money, and you say it's your wife, it's called your wife. Now, a child cannot marry. That's the first thing we need to understand. Because what does it mean to marry? Number one, you need capacity. You need to have capacity. You need consent to be able to marry. Now, you need to be able to, in law, you need to be able to consummate a marriage. All of these things are things that the law say a child cannot do. So this whole idea of branding it, I've called it consistent rape, domesticated rape of a child.
So why has it gone unpunished? I mean, now, if the law stated this out clearly,
that's why we need to understand that culture will eat strategy for lunch or for breakfast, like Peter Drucker said. Now, when you look at there's a law in Nigeria, the law against bigamy. That is when you marry under the act, you cannot marry another wife, under the act. But people go ahead and break that law. Right. The only case we have in Nigeria today, as far as I'm aware, I've been a lawyer for 22 years, is Prince Will and Prince Will many years ago, because our culture does not support it. That and in the society where that law is promulgated, there is welfare system, there is support system for a woman and all of that. Your husband can be in jail for marrying another wife, while the state takes responsibility for your children. When you and in that culture, the way they learn to settle matter is by going to court. In this culture, the way you learn to settle matter is by calling family members.
Meeting.
And if you take your husband to court and your husband is jailed on your account, what do? So that is why it is still important for us not to address the foundational issue. It is about what we believe. It is about how we see the child. And the problem is we treat children the way we see them. We see them the way we're seeing growing up.
Do we have a bigger challenge here? I mean, you've mentioned part of the law that we have not explored. Yeah. Is there a bigger challenge of people understanding what their rights are by the law? Because if you have rights to then sue someone for bigamy, for instance, and we had just one case, it probably means that people don't know that they can do these things.
It's not that people don't know. Lawyers face, people who are lawyers, who know the law. Enlightened people see their husband take another wife. Enlightened people tell you that I don't even mind if my husband has another wife as long as he continues to take care of us. Right. You hear that around. Right. Now, the point is this. The law itself is an instrument of social change when it comes to social issues like this. And that's why in 2003, after the Child Rights Act was promulgated, UNICEF understood that the mere fact that the law was promulgated did not mean it was going to be followed. And that's why it started an enlightenment program. I was opportune to work with UNICEF, going around the country, calling attention to the rights of children, trying to address our belief system that keeps us where we are. And so I think that in our religious places of worship, at our town hall meetings, we need to bring this conversation to the fore.
Regularly.
Then the girl child herself needs to be empowered, because you see, nations like Pakistan, like Saudi Arabia and the rest of them, you find a situation where children are inspired and empowered to speak up against these issues. Now, when you look at the figure that Mr. Rotimi has read out, you find out that it's pathetic. 87%, 80%, 50% in Bayelsa. Now, so what do we have? When we have in this same country, Nigeria, where the chairman of 3 of the leading banks in Nigeria are women. What else are we looking for? That shows us the potential of the girl child. If we really respect her right, and we give her wings to fly. Now,
let's go on a break, Barisakinami. We're due for a break. We're going to talk about some of these other rights. Today is International Day of the Girl Child, and the numbers that we have on the table, sincerely, they're very alarming. The theme for this year is Girl Force, unscripted and unstoppable. Girl Force, unscripted and unstoppable. Let's tell you that Iranian women finally can go to watch football matches after 40 years because a woman...
That one. Look. So,
Rotimi, let's go on a break and we'll talk about it when we come back. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. You can join this conversation there. It's been happening not just in Africa, in many countries across the world. Join us again for this and more. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry.
More talk, news, and sports after this.
Your number one talk news and sports station. This is the Morning Crossfire with Wemimo and Sheriff.
The conversation certainly continued here in the studio during that break because it's the International Day of the Girl Child. There's a lot to talk about on this day. I mean, just on all fronts. Right. There are so many things to talk about. The theme for this year is Girl Force, Unscripted and Unstoppable. And the essence of this year's International Day of the Girl Child is to achieve these aims, which is to include elimination of all forms of discrimination against girls, eliminating negative cultural attitudes and practices against girls, promote and protect the rights of girls, and increase awareness of their needs, their potentials, to also eliminate discrimination against girls in education, in skills, development and training, to eliminate discrimination against girls in health and nutrition, economic exploitation of child labor, to protect young girls at work, to eradicate violence against girls, to promote girls' awareness of and participation in social, economic, and political life, to also strengthen the role of the family in improving the status of girls. This is a lot packed into one day.
Quite
Conversations will be going on across the world at this moment and throughout the day. Let's bring it back to... Okay, I don't want to get myself started on this one, but let's move it on to health and nutrition. Rotimi, the numbers that we've put forward, well, I just can't ferry past this one. Female genital mutilation is still a big deal on the table. One of the cultural practices that we somehow have refused to let go of. The long vac, ended recently, and there are statistics that show that during vacations, more girls are mutilated because they're then taken to their towns and villages, and some of these rites are scheduled for this period. We've talked about female genital mutilation quite a number of times on the Morning Crossfire, but it seems a dire cultural practice that even women defend. When I went to Ebonyi, when we had the interview with those women, they told us in clear terms that they didn't plan to stop. And in fact, if you didn't come from their town and you were marrying a man from their town, they have to circumcise you so that you don't pollute yourself, and so on. The big question I ask is, we talk about this every year. What really do we need to do to make this stop?
Well, we need to talk about it every day, never mind every year, So the reason why these things continue, and people need to see the big picture. Patriarchy has captured the Nigerian states. And because it has captured the Nigerian state does not play its role in defending women's rights. And these rights are broad: education, health, economic, bodily integrity, and so it is really, really broad. And that's why, as was said earlier, that belief system or culture will eat strategy for breakfast. But that happens when the state has been captured by patriarchy. In places where the state has been extricated from the capture of patriarchy, that is where the state plays its role.
Right.
So you cannot, in any of those countries, grab a child off the street and say, that 14-year-old is your wife, and therefore she's your property, and therefore anything you do with her is your business alone. Or for that matter, you can't start beating your adult wife, who is probably an economist or doctor, or sadly, maybe even a lawyer, and you beat up the person and say that the law allows you to chastise. Yeah. Because that's the law in Nigeria. The law allows you to chastise
a husband, to chastise the wife,
chastise the
as
wife,
long as you don't cause bodily
yes,
harm.
No, serious. Serious bodily harm. So when patriarchy has captured this, you have that kind of contradiction in which the Constitution says something else, sections of the law say something else, and penal code and culture say something else entirely. So that's what provides the legal cover for these things like female genital mutilation. Because people have to understand, it's not circumcision, it is mutilation. It's based on a false belief that women do not have their rights to sexual enjoyment like men. And therefore, that the women need to be mutilated to the point where they can then be locked in. But it has huge. In fact, the World Health Organization has made it clear that there is no health benefit
absolutely
whatsoever. On the contrary, the negatives are high.
Right.
It increases the risk of injury and death during pregnancy.
The number of women between 15 and 49 who have been mutilated, we have about 20 million in Nigeria. 24.8% of girls and women between 15 and 49 have been mutilated.
So when people are talking about high maternal mortality or morbidity, these are the things that contribute to it. Many people think that when you talk about high maternal mortality or morbidity, it is just because we don't have enough clinics. Yeah, we don't have enough midwives. You don't have enough skilled attendants at birth. It is things like female genital mutilation that make it very risky, very, very risky for women at childbirth. Because the same woman you are trying to curb what patriarchy describes as excess, the same woman you expect her to have a baby, the same woman you subject her to risk of death, and the same woman, when you feel that she's not responding to your sexual advances, as Oga of the house, you start beating her, or you start misbehaving, or you then go to somebody who has not been mutilated.
Right.
And there lies the contradiction.
Right.
Because then you are wondering what has happened. And when you called the so-called fake family meeting to then look into the thing, you then be pontificating there. She doesn't fulfill the conjugal obligation. Anytime I touch her, she moves back. She doesn't like me. She's in pain.
Absolutely. And she might not even understand what's going on with her.
Because in many cases it's being done when she's a child.
Let's look at the numbers again. FGM has the highest prevalence in the South at 77% among adult women. This is followed by Southeast with 68%, Southwest 65%. Ironically, it's got a smaller number in the North, but that is where you have the most extreme forms of FGM. If you look at the total population, national prevalence rate of FGM is 41% among adult women. If you break it down, 37 of these women said no. They didn't want this to continue, but they were not able to resist it. Brad Takilami, let's look at what laws we need to change, because like Rotimi has said, and you've also mentioned, if the state is not in charge, then we keep touting culture as an excuse for these things not stopping. What do we need to change in our laws to firmly end female genital mutilation, for instance?
Laws are very critical. Laws are important. And one thing that I've come to find is that enlightenment is superior to enforcement. Now, if we make laws, there are laws. In Lagos State, for example, and in Ekiti State, they took the lead in promulgating the law on law against violence against persons. There are two laws, both in Ekiti State and in Lagos State, different laws that criminalizes female genital cutting or female genital mutilation. Now, when you make a law and you sit down in the office of the Attorney General or in the chambers of the judge, and the police officer sits down in their offices, in their police station, and how do we enforce that law? In countries where laws are respected, it is a collaboration between the state and the people that the people become social police officers, that when they see something that is wrong, they are the one that will be in the forefront of reporting, because they have been sensitized, they have been educated. And when the law is not followed, they are in the forefront of saying, no, the law must be followed. Now, there is no way you are going to have a law that people are not aware of. When people are aware of, they are not courageous enough to ask for that law to be enforced. The next time a police officer is sacked and publicized for refusing to attend to a woman who approaches the police that is being beaten by the husband, and the police officer says it's a domestic matter, forgetting did you do? Forgetting that the woman has a right, right to dignity of human person, then that becomes a major issue. Then police officers begin to understand that you don't operate that way. So if a police officer steals, the police hierarchy wants to show that they're responsible. they sack him. They make him a public show. If a police officer does something, collects money in traffic, a new IG wants to show that he's working, he just parades him and they sack him. But no police officer has been brought to book for being irresponsible in enforcing the law when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to all of these issues. In Lagos State, for example, where female genital mutilation is expressly criminalized, and in Ekiti State, how many people have been arrested? How many people have been brought to book? I worked with UNICEF in 2016 or 2017. We carried out a statewide survey in Ekiti State. I was the state coordinator for Ekiti State to look at the belief system, to look at the things that encourage female genital cutting. I went to I was in the state capital. I was in the rural areas talking to these people. The only thing that was clear was that they were not even aware that that law exists. Okay. And even if the law exists, they say things like, let the state come and arrest all of us.
So my question will now be, the role of the people is important in all of this. The police will not just know everything that is happening.
They should be trained to know.
The people are supposed to give information to the police, because these things are happening amongst the people.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that maybe a particular focus, a very intense focus, should be on people awareness.
People awareness, but who's going to fund it? Now, look at the tragedy that we are dealing with in this country. When it comes to social development, what is the budget of the Nigerian state to educate its citizens? What is the budget? Because you see, most of this work, when it comes to sensitization, reorientation, is carried out by development agencies. And don't forget, NGOs like Dambisa Moyo has made it abundantly clear. She refers to AIDS as dead aid. No continent on earth survive or becomes great by collecting donations from different organizations all over the world. And that's what we do. We leave our if polio is going to be eradicated in Nigeria, it's because Bill Gates Foundation is paying attention. If we are going to be aware of the rights of our children, it's because UNICEF is involved. If we are going to be interested in the female, in the health of our female children, it's because Society for Family Health is interested.
The state is not playing.
The state is not playing its role. What is the budget of? And when we talk about education, we need to take education beyond the standard education, the official education. We need to take education to what people need to know about their livelihood. Look at family planning, for example. At the time in China, it was one child policy, which later became 2 children, later. But what is the education we give to children? What is the education we give to women in terms of family planning, in terms of all of these things? The state is comatose. The state is silent. The state is almost non-existent when it comes to all of these issues that relate with educating the public about the things they need to know.
Well, we've tried to do this education for the past how many minutes? Let's get to the phones and ask the questions. Hoping that you've understood a lot of the things that we've mentioned today. The challenges of the girl child. The theme for the year is Girl Force, unscripted and unstoppable. But for the girl child to be unscripted and unstoppable, we need to put a lot of things in place. If you'd like to join this conversation, here are the numbers.
Call us on 0127709993, 0127719993, 0127729993, and 0127739993. This is Nigeria Info. We are listening.
Nigeria Info, we are listening. We're also up on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Nigeria Info FM, and we can see your comments there. Again, we apologize we can't read your messages on WhatsApp today. Let's read this one on Facebook from Ekrebe Otas, who says, I honestly think there should be no discrimination of the girl child. However, I think the increase of uneducated girl children is due to uneducated parents. You can't give what you don't have. No educated, rightly exposed parents will prevent their girl child from having quality education, because at the end of the day, the parents will still be the ones to suffer when they have uneducated girl children. Great thought there.
Let's speak with Pastor Oladipo from Orile. Pastor Oladipo, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Wemimo.
Good morning.
Good morning, every other person in the studio.
Morning.
Morning, madam.
I'm a man.
Pastor Oladipo.
My voice.
Please pardon that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That wasn't me.
Okay, sorry. My take this morning. if we are going to achieve a milestone on this particular issue we are discussing, I want us to take this campaign more to the grassroots, especially the rural areas and the religious houses. They play a very vital role, and that is the only way we can overcome.
Right.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, many religious houses still push the patriarchal system very strongly.
Absolutely.
Because of what they believe.
Peter is here from Yaba. Peter, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm calling from...
Peter, we need you to speak into your phone and speak louder, please, so we can hear you.
I'm speaking through my phone now.
Okay.
So, concerning girls' child training, by the grace of God, I have a girls, but you know, one of my girls in secondary school. So whenever she came, she always told me about the teacher, the way their teacher is talking her, that she don't like. I don't change to science from the I have already changed it twice.
Oh, she complains about her teacher touching her?
Yes.
And then you changed her school?
So almost science now.
What did you do to those teachers?
Did you report those teachers?
I met one of our teachers the last 2 weeks. Told me that the teacher told me that the girl is not concentrate, something like that. I met my girl. I told her, I said that the teacher is particularly forcing her to do what she don't want to.
Oh, forcing her. Okay.
Yes. So I asked my daughter what is happening. Privately, told me that the teacher always asking her to come to our private help. She said, no, don't want to come.
Peter, we need to take this seriously and report that teacher or those teachers. This is not something.
Teacher and to the police.
To the police
Immediately.
Yeah, this is not something to take lightly. If your daughter
report to the head teacher and the police immediately.
Right. This is nothing to try to be nice about. Please report, because if they are doing it to one girl, they are doing it to
a lot of people. And even if you move your child from the school, other people will be victims.
Right. So please report this very seriously. Thank you.
Ferdinand, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Rotimi.
Morning.
Good morning, the barrister. Going by these statistics, you know that our girls and our women are in trouble. But beyond that, I want to know what are the university basic education, what are their primary responsibilities? Is it not to educate people or to find out that these girls are enrolled into schools, and why is it we keep having these statistics and nothing is being done? What are the money made for their development and the information and the education? Thank you.
Thank you. Remember, we mentioned this yesterday. The UBEC funds are based on counterpart funding, the UBEC grants. Many states don't even, get their own grants. So we have a big problem.
That's the point at which I was talking about, the cluster planning strategy, where the federal minister of education needs to call the 36 state ministers of education and say, so this is our own contribution to the UBEC. What is yours? Doing? Because your state data shows that there are 2 million children out of school. The majority of them are girls. We need to build those schools,
and we need to see your plan.
We need to train the teachers, and not just your money, but the plan.
Right.
Unless it's done like that, this federal thing alone is not going to work.
Hello, Monday. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. My name is Monday.
Welcome, Monday.
Yeah, I want to contribute to the issue of FGM.
Please go ahead.
I think for us to have a good mileage in that area, we must talk to the traditional rulers. Because, they are the custodian of these cultures. For example, there are, if like let's use the Oni of Ife comes up with a statement that female genital mutilation is outlawed in the whole of Ife or maybe its domain. People will respect it.
Right.
But where we make it legal, we are doing all this here, we don't draft in the custodian of the cultures into the issues. Then we just be Because the people passing the laws, the legislators, they know that those laws are dead on arrival. So they just pass it for the sake of passing and placating the pressure groups.
You have made a very important point. You have made a very, very crucial point.
It may be true, but the other reason the laws are dead on arrival is because the law enforcement is poor.
Right.
How many times have the police been trained and instructed that they should arrest and prosecute?
Because if there is a law...
Do they recognize it as...
and if there's any training that the police is receiving, it's from donor agencies. What is the budget of the Nigerian police force?
From scratch, from when they are in the police college.
We have someone on the line. Good
Abdullahi
morning.
from Ogun State. Abdullahi, good morning to you.
So my brother, how are you?
Well, fine.
You are doing very well. You are educating masses. You are helping masses as well.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best. You can continue. Please, may I know the name of that barista who spoke on radio on Friday? You always talk on Friday around 4 to 5 o'clock.
You'll have to call back to find that out. We're on a live show right now. If you call back at 9 o'clock, you find someone to respond.
Even better, just join the public square at 4.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes. Just join public square at 4.
Let's go back to Facebook. Toyo Amor says, nice discussion so far. This is a reason we can't leave government out. NOA is a government agency. They should take responsibility to educate the country. The last time we had the director of NOA here, it was quite a conversation. Original Samuel says, just imagine a father just admitted not taking necessary action on an alleged sexual assault on his daughter. These and many more are the reasons why such problems persist. Let me ask you, Barrister, because of that father who called, for a parent who finds out that the daughter is being assaulted, what should they do immediately?
Well, in Lagos
practical
State,
terms,
in Lagos State, there's a statewide policy on the protection of children. Now, what they need to do is there's an organization in Lagos State. It's an agency of the Lagos State government called Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team, DSVRT. They take responsibility for protection of children and women from sexual abuse and domestic violence, or anybody who is exposed to domestic violence.
Okay.
I think
and they respond very quickly.
They respond quickly. The coordinator of that is Titi Vaivo Adeni. You know, she's they are available. If this person goes online to look for domestic and sexual violence response team, is going to see their details there.
Right.
And I've worked with them over the years, and I can vouch for them that they are highly.
We've had them on this show. We had them just some weeks ago, and they have a short call. Just go online and do a quick search, but please report to this case.
Samuel, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for holding the line.
Thank you very much. I am a law enforcement agent, and I just want to contribute on this.
Go on, please.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue of this FGMC is, you see, the government of Nigeria is not doing anything. We always wait for funding, always wait for foreign funding and foreign investment on this. This originally should be like a one-shop stop where you come and get all the people involved in this fighting of this FGMC against FGMC should be on ground. The doctors, the psychologists, the police officers, or whosoever people should be on like a one-shop stop. Okay? So the government is not doing anything. Always wait for people to fund this. If anything you want to do today, if you don't have the money on ground, you don't have the funding, there is nothing you can do.
All right.
Unfortunately.
All right.
So, and training, education on this should be a thing of, a regular thing, so that the agency should be updated on, and the enaction of a law. The legislation in the country is weak, so there is nothing.
As a law enforcement agent, have you been trained on attending to cases around FGMC?
I was trained not by any of it's a foreign training anyway. I just got that involved. I involved myself on that.
Wow. All right.
Samuel,
Thank you so much for giving us that update.
We also need more police women.
Yeah.
We need more women magistrates and judges.
That will happen when more girls go to school.
Yes, because the imbalance
in the system.
In that system also makes the prosecution more difficult.
Right, we must go now. This conversation is happening all day long. There's a lot to talk about. The theme for the year, remember, is Girl Force, unscripted and unstoppable. We thank you very much for joining the show. Barrister Taiwo Akinlami is a child rights advocate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I must say that the nation of the future is the nation that pays attention to children.
Right.
It's very, very important that we understand that.
Rotimi Sankore.
Sadly, we didn't have enough time to discuss the economic impact. Because when you say 100 million people in multidimensional poverty, the majority are women for the reasons we discussed.
This
it
conversation
drives the nation
continues
into conflict and all kinds of problems.
Right, all through the day. Join all of our shows. We'll be talking about the girl child all through the day on Nigeria Info. Thank you all for joining us on our social media platforms. Also, it's Friday. That means we will be seeing you again Monday morning. But after the news, Tunji Andrews will be here with money, business, and economy.
And just before then, someone just posted a number of the DSVRT on our streaming platform on Facebook. So feel free to go there if you have any case as regards domestic violence.
Right. Or just do a quick search online. They respond very quickly. Big thanks to Tosin Akinride, Zainab Yakin, Yvonne Ohaifo for all assisting. We'll see you on Monday morning. And also to our correspondent, Goodness Ndukwe, who got that Vox Pop for us. We'll see you on Monday morning. And Wemimo Adewuni.
And I'm Sheriff Quadry.
More talk, news and sports after this.